Hello, everyone. Welcome to our class on structuring your study group. We've had so much fun doing these free classes this month, making sure we get the content in and have something semi-organized for you guys. And hopefully this benefits you and helps out your study process. So today we're talking about structuring your study group, which is so important. And determining whether you're going to have a study group or not. I would say yes, have one. I'm here. I'm Liat, in case you don't know me, and we have Casey over here on the other side. She's shy today.
No, we're not.
All right. So what we'll cover today: the importance of needing someone to hold you accountable. Why you would take a study partner or a study group. This test is applied. So you really need someone to talk it out with. What that means is it's not going to solely be about the one example that's in your book, right? The concepts that we talk about can generalize to basically every human behavior, that is out there. And so you need someone to talk this shit out with. This test is very cumbersome. There is lots to know, lots of details, and it can be very lonely. So why make it lonely when it doesn't have to be? There's people who are having that same shared adversity. This is what they're dealing with at the time. And now you could share this and it doesn't have to be lonely.
I love that term, shared adversity.
What?
I love that term, shared adversity, because no one except someone who's going through this knows how hard it is.
Exactly. Thank you, Leah. I just thought of that on the spot. So you need someone to hold you accountable, right? Whether it's one individual or a group of individuals. I think that having a small group is great because life does happen along the way, and you at least have someone to meet up with during those times. So you need to find someone who has the same MO as you. Oh, I meant to fix that. I saw it also.
Definitely.
Because of my fingers, I can't feel them. I always hit capital. So this way you're both super into this. So what do I mean by this? You need someone who is just as driven to take this test and pass it by whatever date, because you are going to keep each other motivated, okay? So you don't want to find someone who's like, oh, I'm happy to meet with you. I'm testing in 3 years, right? You want someone who's like around the same time period as you, studying the same, in the same process. And there's people all the time who are getting started. So find someone else who's into this, because your family members do not care to hear about it anymore. That's the truth. You'll learn that. They're gonna be like, okay, can you just shut up already? I'm sure a lot of you guys can relate when you watch this. Finding someone who has the same power hours as you. Early birds meet early birds. Owls meet owls, right? You want to, whether you consider yourself an early bird or not, but that's the only time that you can meet because you have kids or you have something going on, that you got to choose when is going to be your most successful time and find someone who has that same time. You want to do this from the get-go to set yourself up for success. Set days and hours, not like, oh, it'd be nice. I think we should meet every 2 weeks, right? When you say something as broad as that, when's that going to happen? You need set days and hours. So it's like, okay, we meet every Monday and Wednesday morning at 6 to 8 a.m., whatever it is. Let your family, those people in your life, your support system know when those hours are, because just life comes up. There's going to be so many times when you're like, oh, I'm supposed to be studying right now. But at least you know that any of those extra times that you wanted to get in, at least you have something set. And it also will make you feel more at ease in knowing that you at least have something scheduled. And you'll have that carved out time. You need someone to talk this shit out with. Again, this test is applied. So it applies to anything going on in the world. And the cool thing about behavior is it's everywhere, right? It's not only strictly as to the content you're studying right there, right? If you're studying for the bar exam, you're talking about one specific, law that you might be going over. This is like, you could see reinforcement everywhere. You could see extinction everywhere. You could see punishment everywhere. It's happening all the time, right? So you really need someone to talk this stuff out with. And you may think that you totally get something, you read your book, you're like, oh my God, I totally get reinforcement. I just read about it, or I totally understand concurrent schedules of reinforcement. Okay. In your head. Now explain it to someone. Can you? If you can explain it to someone, that means you actually get it. And you will realize what you don't understand when you talk it out with someone else, because they might add some things in and be like, oh yeah, that's the one where X, Y, and Z. And you're like, oh yeah, that is, right? And then you add that to your understanding of it, and you are constantly growing each other's understanding of different concepts. All right, I'm assuming a lot of people in this field, I have no idea, but I assume a lot of you guys were probably like me as a young age. I would teach anyone who would listen. You know, we have a lot of people, not saying everyone, but a lot of people in this field happen to come from like education background, teaching. And so you might have been the same person teaching, playing school with friends. I would boss everyone around, like, hey, you sit here, you sit here. I have this worksheet for you. I take all my teachers' like old curriculums that the school was getting rid of and pretend like I was teaching like full geography, which I don't even like that topic. But so play school here, right? Hey, I'm going to be the teacher now, and I'm going to teach you about this. Actually, I was studying, I looked for someone, especially in college, even before studying for the BCBA exam. I'd always find someone who was having the most difficult time in the class and be like, hey, do you want to study together? Right? Because someone who already knows it all, it's not going to be as interested in having you teach it to them or talk it out, right? You want someone who's hungry to learn and they're just like missing pieces. That's who you want to teach. Or you could find someone who knows it really well and you be the student if you're better in a student role, right? Ask each other comprehension questions about what you just taught. Like, okay, so today we're going to be talking about reinforcement. And reinforcement is a consequence which, when it occurs, it increases the future frequency of a behavior. So what does reinforcement do? Okay, so can you tell me an example of your day as when you utilize reinforcement or when you notice that your own behavior was reinforced, right? Ask these questions to make sure that the person you're studying with understands. Also, be able to provide multiple examples of each concept. If you're a teacher, right, just so you know, whenever I'm teaching you guys a collective or Casey, I have to be able to pull random examples from my ass at all times, because sometimes you guys are like, can you give me more examples? Or I see that some of you guys are like on the verge of almost getting it, and it's like, you need one more example to make that concrete in your mind. So I want to make sure that you can pull examples out of your ass, because that means you really understand it and you can apply it to the test. If you're only remembering the example in the book, that means you haven't generalized the information. And this test is all about generalizing the information to any behavior, any subject, any environment. So this is really important. I mean, this is fun. I mean, as someone who loves office supplies and school supplies, like being able to take a whiteboard out and teach anyone, so fun. Okay. Quiz each other on random task list areas, right? You have the task list. You could also do this with your Cooper book. Open your Cooper book. Be like, this is the topic I turn to. Oh my God, multiple baseline design. I hate these. Okay, let me ask you about this. Which one of these is the most common, right? You read a fact in there. So let's say it's saying, I just went blank, Casey. What is it? Multiple subject across, I think, behaviors.
Oh, behaviors, subjects, and settings.
No, but the most common one, I think, is behaviors.
Subjects.
Subjects. Thank you. That's why I keep Casey here. See, you got to have a study partner. So multiple baseline across subjects, where you see the different names, right? And let's say I was reading in the book and it said that's the most common, right? So I read it as a sentence, and then I would say to Casey, I'd make it a question. What is the most common type of multiple baseline design? And Casey right there answered it, right? So that is the importance of having someone to talk this stuff out with. And only when you ask something in question form does it then become something that you've heard someone else answer. So you want to practice saying this stuff as a questions, answering this stuff, give examples for it. You want to utilize it as much as possible. Okay? Because I'm telling you, even you right there, I've taught the collective for I don't know how long when I teach this stuff, but you just need to be re-asked. You need to talk to someone about it. Like right then. Example. Huh? Like you need someone else to bring it fresh to your mind. Hearing different voices say it, seeing it in different places, write your notes out. If you guys decide you're going to write some flashcards out, whatever you like to do. All right. present real life examples from your day and try to determine if these could be good examples of the concept you've been studying, okay? So what that would look like, and by the way, you have your set study times, but I also recommend that you have each other's phone number to text, right? And I'd be like, oh my God. So let's say I'm back to concurrent schedules and Casey's my study partner. And I say, I'm like, okay, so right now I am stuck between trying to figure out if I want to sit and study, or I got invited to go watch The Bachelor with my friends. Wouldn't that be an example of a concurrent schedule? Like there's two schedules. I could either study or I could go out with friends and the reinforcement's different. Would that work? Casey would probably write back like, yeah, I think so. This is what happened. What?
I'd say brilliant.
Brilliant. And then she might write back like, well, I think it would be true because there's two different schedules of reinforcement, two or more, and you're having to make a choice, right? So now you've both learned something from this, right? I was confirming my own thought. She's tacked it or labeled why it would be this. And so it's really important to do this all the time. Okay. No one listens to me on this, and I'm actually going to take my highlighter out because it's that important. No one listens, but there's been few people who have, and let me tell you, they all say, holy shit, I see why you said this now.
Ugh.
Write out your own questions for each other. Question answering is a skill on its own, okay? It has nothing to do with how much content you know. It has nothing to do with whether you're a good practitioner or not. This is, can you see those keywords that are going to make it one answer versus another? Are you able to write a tricky question where you are able to write a question where you are writing it so you want them to choose the wrong one, but there's one word that makes it only the other one specifically, right? When you write questions like that, you are thinking like a test writer, and you're like, oh, that word not I put in, now it doesn't work for that. So you are able to break down a question the same way the test writers are writing it. This is huge. No one does this, or not enough people, so I'm being dramatic when I say no one, but you don't realize the difficulty in writing a test question until you write it. So just try write one, right? So let's say I wrote a question and I said, you know, I'm writing a question and I'm learning about the concept of positive reinforcement. So I tell Casey, okay, so I was working with this girl in my classroom today, and, you know, she always calls out and she raised her hand. So then I called on her and gave her a candy. This would be A, positive reinforcement, B, punishment, C, negative reinforcement, or D, extinction, right? Casey then hears that question. And I'm like, in my head, I'm like, I wrote such a good question. This is positive reinforcement. I said I gave a sticker. Casey might.
Not enough information there, Leah. Sorry, you don't tell me anything about the future frequency of that girl's behavior. So none of these can be it.
Exactly. So then Casey has fine-tuned my question. You see that? I wrote it out initially, and now Casey's saying, well, it actually, based on what I learned, it actually would not be reinforcement unless you tell me if that girl raises her hand in the future. So now we go back and we edit the question together, right? Mm-hmm. Susie's in a classroom. Susie never raises her hand in class. She's always calling out. One day, Susie raises her hand, and Leah, the teacher, calls on her and provides her a cookie. Now in the future, Susie always raises her hands. This is an example of, now I have my same answer choices, and now it is strictly positive reinforcement, right? But you fine tune each other's questions, you'll realize you try to write something, but it's not quite the answer, or it could be too, because of a specific word you left out. All right, this is so important. I can't even talk about it enough. So realize that I'm not doing this for fun, just to hear my own voice. This is something that will really help you. Okay. Now read a section of your book together. Like, hey, we're going to read this next 2 paragraphs, and let's translate it to each other in basic human language, right? Basic layman's terms. So when you are going through your book, and you're reading something so confusing, let's see, I'll pull my book up right here. And I say, all right, I don't know. All right, so I'm gonna take this random page here. This is on temporal loci of stimuli, right? Because behavior and the environmental conditions that influence it occur within and across time, the temporal location of stimulus changes is important. In particular, behavior is affected most by stimulus changes that occur prior to and soon after the behavior. The term antecedent refers to environmental conditions or stimulus changes that exist or occur prior to the behavior of interest. Because behavior cannot occur in the environmental void or vacuum, every response takes place in the context of a particular situation or set of antecedent conditions. These antecedent events play a crucial part in learning and motivation, and they do so irrespective of whether the learner or someone in the role of behavior analyst or teacher has planned it or even aware of them, right? Then it talks about a consequence. So let's say I read this chapter to someone, or this little section, and Casey had her book and I had mine. It sounds like a different language, right? So we would go through this, and based on what I just read, and by the way, I just want you guys to know that Casey is such a good sport. I did not tell her what I'm gonna read. I did not. Every single thing comes out of my head on the spot. That's how I teach best. So I'm gonna model Casey based on what we just spoke about. So Casey, okay, so what we were reading about here, I'm pretty sure, is about, we keep seeing that term temporal, right? And
Yeah.
it's saying like when something happens in time.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's saying, tell me if you agree, that every behavior that happens is going to have an antecedent before it and a consequence. Like even if you plan for it to be a behavior or not, there's always something before and after. I think that's what it's saying about the temporal loci of stimulus, because I've never heard of that word before.
Yeah, and I would break down even more like loci, like where it's located in time. So taking that kind of scary word, temporal locus, and being like, okay, just where a behavior happens in time, right? And what happens right before the behavior and what happens right after the behavior. Okay,
perfect. Then, so right now, Casey, I think it'd be the antecedent that I read that paragraph to you. Then you just explained it would be the behavior, and the consequence would be me responding back saying that makes sense. Is that right?
I like that.
Okay. So that's exactly an example of how this should be done. Okay, translate it. A brilliant lady once said, if you can talk it, you can test it. I've said that since day one. I'm her. How awkward. No, I'm just kidding. No, but seriously, you do not know what you don't know until you say it out loud. Okay, you think in your book you get it, but then you get put on the spot and someone asks you like, how do we establish true values, right? And it's like, huh? You might have read it, but you have to say it out loud.
Yes.
That is so important. So if you can talk it, you can test it. At Study Notes ABA, as you know, we're very into making things fun. And we have a science that it can be fun, right? Once you see things through this behavioral lens of like everything's the antecedent, everything has a behavior, everything has a consequence, there's reinforcement everywhere, extinction everywhere, these scales of reinforcement. Once you see things through this angle, you can't unsee it. You are now officially annoying to everyone else outside of your circle. No, I'm kidding. But once you see it, you want to share this with other people all the time. So like, I will call Casey up and I'll be like, oh my God, dude, Kobe just started sitting. And I'm telling you, he's sitting and it's really a behavioral cost because now he's able to like set up for his food. He's able to like play with the different toys. He's able to like open the books that I'm trying to show him, whatever it is, right? Everyone doesn't see it like that. He's like, oh, wow, Kobe got the new skill. Wow. You know, he's not probably realizing it. It's just like going through the motions, but it's having someone to talk this stuff out with is so cool because it's happening all around you. Utilize the Facebook groups. Our Facebook groups, we do monitor them to make sure that people are only posting stuff that is, we try our best, anywho. There's been some weird people in there lately. I don't know what's going on, but We try to take out anything that is not accurate in there. And it's a great place to post questions or like things that you're having difficulty with or studying. If you have those questions, people who are sharing the same MO as you are just as eager for the answers for your questions. So a lot of the time, sometimes you guys ask us questions, you guys ask us questions and we're like, dude, there's people in the group who are studying the exact same thing who would love the opportunity to answer because it's a study opportunity for them, right? Be each other's cheerleaders. It's amazing what I've seen. I've seen people create different groups like Pacific Standards, Central, whatever it is, and they literally would cheer for each other every time someone else passed, and they still stayed, people who had already passed, to study with the people who didn't until they did. So realize these are your people to cheer for you, okay? Like they're in the same place as you. See this as investing in relationships, okay? This is beyond just studying for the test. This is not just useful for this moment, right? These are your colleagues after you take the test. And this field is so relatively new compared to other fields that you want people to talk about this with. You're going to be in a clinic, and if you're feeling lonely studying, you're probably going to feel lonely also when you start working. So you don't have to, the same thing, you could have these same people to talk through who are having that same shared adversity. Nothing brings people together more than that. All right? Don't be shy. This is in your best interest. Don't be shy. This is not third grade where it's like, all right, I need everyone to get in study groups, and that one person in the classroom, like, you know, you look at your study partner hoping they look at you too, in case someone else grabs you. This is the more the merrier, right? The more the merrier. Unless it's going to throw you up. Sure, you could join us. This is not like a cliquey setting. This is, we're all here to study, right? This one is cool because your study partner could be located anywhere. All right. I took that corny love quote, distance is nothing when the love is real, and crossed it out when the studying is real. All right. If your morning equals someone's night in Australia and that's the best time for them to study, amazing. Right? Studying could be across the world, wherever works for you. You could be in Texas. I could be, you know, I'll be in Texas. You could be in New Hampshire. Doesn't matter. That's how Casey and I met.
I was gonna say, we started working together before we even met in person.
Exactly. So you never know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And so find someone with a time that works for both of you that you know, and you could text each other at any hours, unless you work with someone who sets like a strict boundary with you, then find someone else. Just kidding, kind of. All right, takeaway tips. I tried putting this into 5 little basic tips, Casey and I. One good tip is purchase the same mock and review your results, right? Talk through your thinking process. You might even buy the same mock and say, okay, maybe you'll answer your number 1, I'll enter my number 1, and we'll see like how we got to our answer as you go through it, right? Before you start taking them on your own. We're not telling you to share mocks. Make sure you both purchase it, right? However, talk through your thinking process, right? One of you might be like, I'm pretty sure it's B. No, dude, it can't be B, because remember we spoke about this concept, right? And you could take notes as you go as to what you're learning as you go through the mock questions, all right? Open your actual book together. Cooper Roulette for the win. People think, oh, okay, I'll just take my notes from class. I'll take this. I'll take someone else's Quizlet and we'll work them. The test is on this book. So it's in your best interest to open the actual book. All right? Seriously, Cooper Roulette, you pick a random page.
Also, we have the YouTube. If you want to see how we do it, we actually have a YouTube called Cooper Roulette, and we do it to each other and some of the students. It was really fun.
All right, I'm actually going to quiz Casey right now on a page I opened. She's probably nervous. All right.
Hot seat.
If we want to know which part of a treatment package is responsible for making the changes to behavior, we might do this type of analysis.
Component analysis.
Good, Casey, why?
Because we're going to take out each different part of the treatment package and see which one is really responsible for the behavior, or is it all of them that's responsible?
Perfect. I just turned to that page. Beautiful. All right. So that's an example of turning something in your book, testing them on it. Then in that moment, Casey said the basic facts at it. I might be learning too. So I might be like, okay. Oh, I like the example they give here about, treatment packages for food packaging. They give this thing about holding or pocketing food in an oral cavity without swallowing. Oh, they're trying to figure out which part's responsible for this. Like I might talk about it and then it leads to conversation. So I really recommend doing this. Take Cooper quizzes together and review each chapter along with the task list, right? Let's say you've read a chapter, you've discussed it, like we both decided we're going to read chapter 10 before we get together next time. And we want to take the Cooper quizzes. By the way, someone watching this video is going to ask us where they could find these Cooper quizzes. And the answer is go to google.com, type in ABA Cooper companion quizzes, and it will come up.
Yeah, it's right on the Friend Hall website.
Exactly. Perfect. All right. Now, next. I spoke about this already, and I'll say it again. Write your own mock questions. Seriously, there's so much benefit in it. I'm not going to say it anymore. I already spoke about it for a long time. All right. Next, and last but not least, choose the topic you love and or hate the most. Okay, you should do a good amount of both, right? Because if you're doing one you love, that's going to give you that behavior momentum, that excitement. I get to teach what I love. Then follow it with teaching a concept that you don't love or that confuses you the most. Because when you say those things out loud, you'll realize, okay, so for me, autoclinics. I've been teaching the collective for a while now, and I still hate teaching about autoclinics, right? So it started off, I'd be like, okay, Casey, you teach that part to me, or you teach that part to everyone, right? But now it's like, okay, Liat, can you teach it? It's so important to do it with topics you don't like, because then you're saying out loud and you'll be like, oh, that's the part that I don't know how to explain, right? It makes you realize what you don't understand about it. Can you break it down so much? This is different than are you smarter than a fifth grader? It's can you break it down to a fifth grader? Okay, I don't need you to break it down to a 4-year-old, right? They might not have that, but a fifth grader could understand the concept of, okay, look, if you do something good and I give you something, you might want to do it again, right? Try break it down to a fifth grader. That's when when they say, when you'll know, This is all like love related, if you haven't noticed. You'll know when you can explain it to a fifth grader. So these are some takeaway tips. You could contact us, contact@studynotesaba.com, our email, Instagram @studynotesaba, Facebook @studynotesaba. And with that, I really recommend that if you want to find a study group, remember, it does not, Zoom is so cool. FaceTime is so cool. It does not have to be someone located next to you. COVID put a big X on that. So post in the Facebook group, like, hey, I'm in Dallas, Texas. I have availability every day from 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. If anyone's looking to study with me, I'd love it.
And also try to also include when you're testing. Like I'm testing in 2 months. So you want someone who's kind of around the same testing span so that you're both, again, like that MO is the same, where if someone's testing in a year, they're not going to be probably like as eager to meet 5 times a week or every other weekend or whatever it may be. So find someone that's testing close to when you are.
Perfect. All right. So that's all we have for you today. We will stop the recording. Thank you guys for watching this.
Thank you for
see you later.